Tax Allegiance.
Welcome to our first edition of Coffee Talk. It's a program we hope to bring to you on a regular basis to highlight the pros and cons of the real estate market.
The current
good,
trends.
the bad, the ups, the downs, the current trends, so that you can be prepared when it's time for you to shop for a home to purchase or to sell.
And today we have Mike Stein from Fairway Mortgage Corporation with us. Mike has been a loan officer and a branch advisor for 24 years.
That's
if I
correct.
got that right.
Right.
And probably on an average of helping 150 families, at least 150 families a year with their buying of new homes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me to be a part of this first
We're so happy to be
maiden
have you
voyage.
here. Yes.
Oh yeah, it is a maiden voyage. We're really glad to have you because you're awesome. You've worked with a lot of our clients and we know how wonderful you are and how honest you are.
Oh,
we
thank you
thought
so much.
We could get the straight scoop from you today.
I'm happy to provide any info I can.
So buyers, of course, right at the moment are very concerned about what's going on in the market in terms of interest rates
Right.
and how that should affect them and if they should wait. So what is your sage advice about that?
Well, I tell you, if someone can afford, don't focus too much on the timing on the interest rate. Look for what your monthly payment's going to be. And if you can find something in your comfort zone, go ahead and buy now. Don't wait for the rates. There's a lot of people that are waiting for the rates, and when they come down, it's going to be very difficult to purchase property because you might find a house you like, but there might be 10 other families bidding on that same property.
Right.
So if you go ahead and buy now, even though the rates are a little bit higher, when rates come down, you simply just refinance that at that time. You don't have to be in that multiple offer situation when that time comes.
So if you are refinancing, are there a lot of expenses that a buyer is going to incur?
The costs on a refinance are much lower than a purchase. I would say in general about 1% of your loan amount is going to be the approximate cost. So in this area, once the rates drop 0.5% in the rate, it might be time to start looking for that.
So if I know a lot of buyers out there right now are thinking about, well, maybe I should, and on that vein, rent instead of buy, and just wait. And we've already talked about that, but just let's say if they did rent and waited for a year, hoping that the interest rates would come down. What is your thinking on that?
Such a good question. Thanks for asking about that, because this is a conversation I have with buyers multiple times a week. The thought process there is if you're at a point of signing another 12-month lease, and let's say you're paying $3,000 a month in rent. So next year, when rates come down, the property values have likely gone up, maybe 5%, and I think that's a conservative number. It's probably got to be higher than 5%. But if you're looking, let's just say on a $600,000 home, you buy that today at a higher interest rate, or choose to rent for a year and pay $3,000 a month, then 1 year from now, you've spent $36,000 in rent
Just
payments
in rent.
that you have no equity to show for. And now you're trying to buy that same house for $630,000 that you could have bought for $600,000 this year.
Right.
So when you couple those two together, that's $66,000 swing in your net worth by waiting for a lower rate, when you could just buy now and then refinance to a lower rate later.
Right.
That makes sense. That's great. Thank you.
That's good advice.
And then buyers too, the other thing that we're told is that we're not ready. We're thinking about buying, but we're not ready yet. We need some time. It's too early to talk to a lender, because the first thing we recommend a buyer do is call someone like you.
Absolutely.
Right.
Call you.
Right.
To talk to you to get advice and counsel. So when is it too early to start this process?
It is never too early. It is always, some people have a fear of when they call a loan officer, they're fearing they're going down a path they can't turn back on.
Exactly.
It's not that at all. We want to give them the information to prepare them properly to be able to buy when they're ready. Sometimes people are doing everything right, and we go through and just validate that, just keep doing what you're doing, you're ready whenever you want to buy. Many times there are ideas we can provide to them to say, hey, if you adjust this and this in the meantime, you might be able to get a higher credit score, or you might be able to accumulate more assets instead of trying to aggressively pay down your debt. Some people think they have to be debt free to buy, and that's not the case at all. So it might be more important to save money for a down payment. So even if you're not ready to buy yet, it would be very important to just have the consultation with someone like me to walk you through. There's no cost for it, but when you're ready to buy, it's going to be invaluable information.
So you can
Well-
help them pay off. You can help them determine, basically, as a financial advisor. You're not their financial advisor. I recognize that, but how to be
What's good to pay
smart
down, to go ahead and
about-
get some other things
yes.
paid down and in preparation for.
right, or what not to pay off. You know,
Right,
sometimes
right,
I
just
know,
pay a few things down, or
Right.
just to pay some off is, I've had you do that with some of my clients in the past too.
Sometimes people think that they want to put a 20% down payment
Right.
because that's in the mind to that's a normal
Right.
number, but sometimes it is better to pay off some debt and to only put 10% down, and that might improve your cash flow much more than just trying to put 20% down and maintain your current debt structure. So
Well,
those are things that we're able to discuss with the client and make sure they got the right game plan.
what kind of, do you have special programs for your buyers that might help with whether they do 20% or 10%?
So there is I don't even know how many different programs we have. We have
That's
quite a
good.
few.
That's having options is always a good thing.
That's right. We have a lot of options. Our goal and our role, really, in that consultation process, is to gather all their information, and we help them funnel it down to what mortgage strategy works best. Now, every loan is like a puzzle to me, and so many different puzzle pieces, and sometimes people compartmentalize their mortgage by itself, and they don't look at their overall financial plan. My goal is to take all the puzzle pieces apart and say, how do we put this back together in the best way possible? And that way someone's getting a full overview of their finances and make sure that they're making the right decision when they're ready to buy.
That's great. That's very helpful.
Well, and there's talking about coming to you as soon as possible. There's very few buyers that we're writing an offer at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. It always seems like it's 7 or 8 o'clock on a Saturday night.
Sunday, yes.
And hey, Mike, can you hurry up and get us we need a letter to go with this offer. So
So that is a good point. I still get the calls. In fact, this past Sunday I had 3 calls from buyers that were just found a property, but they had not talked to a lender yet. So it still happens, but that's much more stressful when you don't have
Absolutely.
your financing lined up, and we have to,
Right.
you're excited about the house, but yet we have to gather documentation and do that.
Mm-hmm.
The real estate magic happens in nights and weekends, and
It does.
I try
Yes,
to
it does.
educate clients that we want to be ready. You don't want to add stress at that point.
Right.
So if
Right.
we've done all of our homework and we have the approval ahead of time, if you call me at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, it takes me 5 minutes to send that approval letter over. So
you're not trying to put that jigsaw puzzle
That's right.
together
Yeah,
at midnight when it's
Yeah. We
really, your
try.
eyes are getting a little blurry.
that's right. We try to avoid puzzles at 9 o'clock at night.
I like that.
Okay, so Mike, there are first-time home buyers in the market that would love to buy, but they're scared. They're scared of their interest rates because of all that they're reading. They're afraid they don't have enough money. They're afraid of a lot of things, and I know that you can put people's mind to rest. So what kind of advice would you give a first-time home buyer in a market like we have today?
So I saw a report from Freddie Mac a couple years ago, and I was really surprised at the result that it said 80% of renters believe you have to have a 20% down payment to be able to buy.
Okay.
That's not the case. Even for move-out buyers, we're still not putting that much down in many cases. So first-time buyers, we have multiple programs to help them with a low, or in some cases, no down payment.
Okay, good.
There are of course qualifying criteria for them to be able to make sure they qualify for those, but my favorite one is a VA loan for folks that
Right,
have served
of
in
course.
military. It is a
Do a lot
fantastic
of
loan
those
product.
for us, yes.
Yes, so that is a no down payment option. But even on a conventional loan for those who haven't served in the military, we have conventional loans that'll do 3% down for first time buyers. We even have some through the state of Virginia that offer a down payment assistance so they can help
That's
cover
right.
some of that.
Right.
So it would really come down to, once I get their information and review everything with them, we would be able to decipher what's the best option for that.
Okay, good. That's great. So, one big question everyone is reading in the newspaper. Every newspaper almost is talking about the big bubble. We've seen it before, and it was not a happy time.
Don't believe
It was terrible. So, what is your take on whether or not we're entering a bubble? We're in a bubble. It's about to burst.
So it's a great question. I appreciate you asking, because I do talk to clients about this almost on a weekly basis. When you're looking, people think about the run up we had in the early 2000s and the bubble that happened back in 2008.
Yes.
And the only similar criteria to that time was the rapid appreciation during COVID that we saw. But and people think that because the interest rates are higher that we're going to see values come down. There's a dramatic difference in inventory. In 2007, we were at a 50-year high on real estate inventory.
That's right. We were. It was miserable.
In 2023, we're at a 50-year low. And people feel it. Buyers are saying, gosh, there's just nothing to pick from.
Right. Exactly.
That you can't have a bubble when there's not enough inventory to feed the demand.
Okay.
So even though rates have gone up, you're not seeing prices come down because there's not enough inventory. Builders never got back on track from their pre-pandemic levels. So they've slowed tremendously. They are starting to get back into that, but that put us behind quite a bit on the new constructions. You have a lot of pent-up demand from people that are waiting for rates to come down. You know, they might still be living with their parents, waiting for rates to come down and trying to find the right time to buy. And you couple that with the average first-time home buyer is 34 years old. When you look at the birth charts, the number of people that are between the ages of 28 and 34, it's 50 million people that are coming into the home buying age over the next 6 years.
Wow.
So while we have this low inventory, we have an expanded demand that we're seeing. So I just don't see a bubble happening. Now I can't guarantee anything, but the statistics
I
that
didn't bring a crystal ball.
but the statistics we're looking at, I just don't see anything that's similar to 2008. Other than we've seen a housing appreciation, but the foundational reason for that appreciation is dramatically different than what we saw in 2008.
Well, that's good news. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was one other thing that you mentioned the other day that I'd like to address. The Case-Shiller housing report that we talked about.
So,
I think that's very helpful information for the general public that doesn't
yes.
see this.
So Case-Shiller does a housing appreciation or depreciation report every year. They've done it for 80 years. So as a nation, in 80 years, there has only been 6 years that were negative. Every other year has been either flat or up. 80, yeah, 80.
Negative appreciations.
Negative
where the house price did not go up.
Correct, it dropped.
Okay.
Now there's been a few years where it was flat. I'm not counting those. It's just the depreciation years were only 6 years out of 80.
Wow.
So when people think that they can pick which year that's going to be,
we're waiting
it's
for the
very
prices
hard.
to come back down.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I would advise buy as soon as you're able to and you're comfortable with the monthly payment, and don't worry about the timing on the rates. You can always refinance that later if the rates do come down, but it's going to be harder and more expensive to buy the longer you wait.
That is excellent advice. Thank you for
Thank
giving
you.
it.
Absolutely.
So important to share.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
So on that note, we want to thank you for joining us here at Pat and Pam Coffee Talk, aka Classy and Sassy.